Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Lucid podcast. Today's a bit of a different episode to what we've been doing before, but I hope everyone enjoys it anyway. Here with me is a strength and conditioning coach that I've been working with for about a year and a half now, and he's got good insight on the industry of sport and stuff like that, so it's Sam Vickers.
Hello.
We have a round of applause there.
Thank you, yeah. Yeah, famous man.
Basically, we're just going to be talking about strength and conditioning and anything that's captured in the news or something like that. If you've got
Yeah, well, all things really kind of sports science. I think, someone like yourself, people your age who kind of involved with sport, have an interest in sport, kind of the reality of it all. Maybe what you read and see in the news isn't it might be interesting, it might get kind of an audience, but actually it's not really what is going on.
Yeah.
And it can be a bit misleading. So hopefully it can just shed some light on maybe some areas that are probably a bit more in depth and interesting to learn about.
Yeah, so I was thinking it'd be like uni students will find it interesting because you've obviously been through that process, and then anyone that's considering doing sport at A level or at uni, or obviously even at GCSE, because Sam helps me with gym programs, then we can talk a bit about that, and anyone that wants to get fitter or whatever. It's going to be quite broad, but obviously within the sports area. And also, a quick note, sorry for any background noise. We're recording this at college and there's like hundreds of kids doing something or another. So should we jump straight into it? Just a quick background on yourself.
Yeah, well, where do you want me to start? How far back?
Birth.
Yeah, where it all began, I guess. So kind of for me, I think when kind of thinking of the audience potentially, I, like so many, went to college, did a BTEC in sport, didn't particularly like it, didn't particularly learn anything. I always knew I wanted to work in sport in some capacity, and because I'd come from a sporting background.
Sorry about that, everyone.
I think it's the fans.
It's his birthday.
So it's almost the pathway to get into sport. I think naturally people, when they want to work in sport, they think about working with elite level athletes, because it's almost like that's the sexy part of the industry. Yeah. People don't tend to think that they want to work with, Joe Public who play sport at the weekend, or those ones who are grinding it out week in, week out, not really moving. They just want to work at the top. And the top is such a small percentage that to get to the top, one, it requires a lot of luck, two, it requires a hell of a lot of work, but also it's probably not probably not what they think it will be. And I'm not saying that from my experience in terms, I certainly don't work at the top, far from it, but I do know a lot of people who either do or have, and they've been there in the industry for, decades, you could say, and their kind of positive views on it are probably not actually that positive. And I think that doesn't get explained enough, really. And I don't think when I, for example, did my BTEC and then moved on to university and then kind of moved on afterwards, and now working with elite and professional athletes, you've got to learn it all yourself. You've got to find out yourself, and there's not much out there, one from a teaching perspective and two from an educational perspective, that really gives you that insight. I think things like we're doing now, podcasts, more and more interviews with current strength and conditioning coaches, sports scientists, physios, all those type of people, more and more are providing insight. And what you're seeing is they're not providing insight on the science so much, they're providing insight on actually the industry and what it's like working with people and elite athletes and how to work around that, which is something that isn't taught.
So in terms of like a mindset of either working in that industry or an elite level athlete, how does it differ from when you work with someone who can you tell when someone's not going to be quite there in terms of like sports performance, but also mindset and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think for me personally, they work hand in hand. I've always had a really strong appreciation and probably a bit of a passion of psychology, sports psychology, psychology in general. So I think when I work with an individual, I'm almost assessing them as an individual first and then looking at their sports side.
Yeah.
The thing is, you can pretty much tell after even probably one session, and not in a judgmental way, but in this is what makes a proper coach, and how you can then work around that.
Yeah.
Is whether someone has the mindset to achieve the goals they set. And half the time, the goals they set are unrealistic, and people say, oh, that's quite negative, and you've got to always be confident and positive. But there's a fine line between kind of being, believing you can do something that isn't going to happen, and actually setting a very achievable goal, which I think that comes down to your team around you, but also the individual. It's amazing how many people think they want to get to the top and they're willing to do anything and everything. Yeah. And yet they can't even get very, very simple things in place in their life that requires, it's all down to them. For example, not drinking regularly, not drinking alcohol regularly, not going out on the weekend regularly. It almost sounds, well, if you're a professional athlete, of course you wouldn't do that, but yet that discipline of the individual and that determination to achieve their goals, it's amazing how many of them fold even under the smallest bit of pressure, really. Yeah,
I get what you mean. Do you see like a change in the industry from when you started at uni level or A level on a BTEC level to where you are now? Or, well, obviously in strength and conditioning there's always going to be changes, but do you think like the day and age has changed, or like social media has put anything towards that or anything like that?
Yeah, I think the industry is changing on a daily basis, if I'm honest. I've said this to a few people in the past. When I was actually at university, I didn't even do strength conditioning. We wasn't taught it. Strength conditioning as almost a term was never even put out there. Your biomechanics, your physiology, your psychology was put out there, but your strength conditioning, it wasn't a module. And I'm sure it was on certain courses, but I'm only talking 2010, 2011, which is nothing, 5 years ago. Whereas now, they do whole courses, a whole 3-year degree on strength and conditioning, which to me, is that a good thing? I don't personally see that as a good thing. I think that's very, very specific when strength and conditioning is quite a well-rounded. It takes a lot of understanding from different disciplines within sports science. Obviously they get taught that, but essentially a strength and conditioning coach is a coach first, who applies the science. So if you're just doing a 3-year course on just strength and conditioning, I think I can't get my head around it, if I'm honest, because it's everywhere nowadays. Every sports science course does strength and conditioning. Everyone wants to be a strength and conditioning coach. And it's almost, you see it, it's moved so quickly that top-end strength and conditioning jobs within elite level clubs, which are, there's probably that 1% of jobs, and the wage, you're looking at probably anywhere between 12 and 16 grand. And you work, you know what I mean, for someone who's so highly skilled and done so much education, because it's just overpopulated now. The industry's overpopulated with S&C coaches. And I'm not sure those S&C coaches are any better than what they used to be. So yeah, I think it is changing. And I think you could really, I personally could go into that more and more. But I think that's almost like a separate area of the background of industries in general, isn't it? So
what has been like your motivation towards? What was your motivation towards like uni? Did you want to go straight away, or like you said you didn't really enjoy college that much? Were you kind of dead set on going to uni, or did you have other options that you could have explored?
I think this is kind of one thing that I, on a daily basis, every time I work with an athlete, regardless of their level, their background, their goals, for me, I always want to be able to give them 100% commitment, even if I don't necessarily agree with some of their areas, but try and give them everything I can to allow them to move forward. And that kind of really comes from a place where, when I was at college, I'll hold my hands up, it was as much to do with myself as it was who else was in that environment. But I had zero motivation or passion from those who were teaching me, from those who were essentially meant to be helping you, guide you to that career path. Because, and I don't know why that is. And again, it's not against individuals, but it's more just if you want to achieve something, but you almost haven't got someone who can guide you and support you to reach that goal, I think that's a really, really important part of the process.
Yeah.
That means you've either got to get out of that industry or change where you want to go, which you see with, from my experience, again, 90% of students probably who do sport don't actually ever go in sport, or they almost quit at the first hurdle. And I think that's because some of the people in it are probably don't have a good enough awareness of the current industry. So how can you guide someone when you don't really know what you're guiding on? So when I finished college, it was very much a case of, okay, I still want this, but I don't feel like I'm any closer than I was 2 years ago. And I kind of took a bit of a lottery in a sense, and it took me another 2 years to really, before I could kind of say to others and kind of realise in myself, I'm on the right path now. So it's almost a 4-year process, which I guess everyone goes through in their own way, don't they?
Yeah. Did you enjoy uni when you first went, or was it kind of you settled into it, or was it?
I enjoyed uni for the wrong reason.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that. The only thing that appeals to me from uni is the lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'd have no motivation to learn anymore. Not learn, to be educated anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoy learning, but the way I think I've gone through the process of like school and sixth form, then college, I just didn't enjoy it at all. And I don't think I would get much work done at uni. But
yeah, I can understand that, and like I say, it wasn't until I kind of just clicked really in my midway through my second year at uni. I was like, I get what I'm trying to achieve now and where I want to get and what I need to do that. And it was almost like the penny dropped virtually overnight, and that allowed me to go from kind of, you can be honest and say that individual who is at uni for the wrong reasons, like you've just mentioned, to all of a sudden taking every opportunity there was out there, putting those extra hours in, that extra research, making contacts. So when I finished uni, I did technically walk into a decent job, but it only happened because I set that up for myself. And that was just the beginning. I've had to go, I don't class it as going backwards, but on the outside, I've had to take step backs to move forward again, by going back into education, by getting new qualifications, learning, taking a pay cut essentially to kind of now get to where I want to get. But for me personally, it's the best decision I ever made. But again, there was no one at university, and there's probably not been anyone in my life who's actually helped mentor that. I've had to work that out all myself and kind of just trust yourself and be confident, which is scary, but I find it particularly exciting, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So it is tough. It is tough out there, and I think that's the thing, is people kind of make out it's not, and then when it is tough, they probably fold in before they actually have had a chance to really learn, fail, go through some hard times and come out on the other side. But you could argue that's the same for anything, and that's, again, my career, even to now, I think reflects virtually all athletes' careers. It's the same process for them, and probably a damn sight harder for them.
Well, it's like you mentioned, like the challenges of it. What challenges did you always want to be a strength and conditioning coach, or was it kind of? No, not at all. Like I say, I mean, because it wasn't. It wasn't
at university.
Really taught,
I wasn't aware of what strength and conditioning coach, and I'll be the first to admit, when you kind of talked about that word fitness training or training athletes to make them better physically, you almost would think of just your general gym goer. Someone who might be a physiotherapist or a sports therapist and trained in personal training, or they've done training they might have played sport to a good level, so they know a bit more about kind of generalised fitness. And it's almost like, on the outside, that's not really a great skill. But when you start to really understand the physiology and the biomechanics of strength and conditioning, when the two combine, and then you're working as an actual coach, it's a very it's a very appealing job, but the thing that appeals to me, because essentially I always wanted to be a coach and work with people, is I get to work with individuals, so many different individuals, so many different characters, so many different backgrounds, so many different sports, and that's so no, I didn't set out to be a strength and conditioning coach, but I did set out to be a coach working with athletes and individuals and teams. So the fact that it's kind of gone down this path it's not a coincidence, but you could argue if I was born 10 years earlier, I might have ended up being a biomechanist.
Yeah.
Or I might have ended up being a technical coach in another sport. So, it's interesting when you look at it like that. But I think that's again just a reflection. In another 10 years' time, there'll be people like me who want to work in the sport, but they might not go down the direct avenue of what they think they will, but they come out the other side exactly doing what they want to do. Yeah.
I think it's very rare that anything like that happens, because in 3 years or like 4 years at uni, you're going to change your mind anyway. And a lot of people, I think, will have the mindset of, I'll go to uni and then they've got to give me a job because I've got a degree now and I've put my money in and I've put time in. But I don't think that's true at all. Like you said, you went out your way to put in the effort to make connections, to make links, I'm assuming, by talking to people, by working with people. Yeah. But a lot of people will see it as, or I'm doing enough work at uni already, so why do I need to do anything else to...
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And I certainly was never of this mindset for whatever reason. There's probably people, analysts talk about those individuals who probably weren't as supportive or didn't guide you as much as you'd hope, but maybe because of that they actually guided you almost subconsciously in a way that, for me personally, that made me realise that that having all this great knowledge about the science and being able to write a first class essay, anyone really can do that, but that doesn't make you great at it. It doesn't mean all of a sudden you're a great strength and conditioning coach or sports scientist. And yet at uni, and I think it's slowly starting to shift, and I'm seeing it in other industries, they're starting to learn that the psychology, having an awareness of different personality traits and kind of how that athlete might be feeling down to what's going on in their general life. If you can be almost a psychologist in a basic form, that makes you a very, very powerful coach. They're still going to do a program, aren't they? They're still going to do, all S&C coaches probably do 90% of their programs exactly the same as anyone else in all sports. So that's not what separates you. What separates you is your ability to coach and make relationships with those who you work with, which, I don't think you can teach that.
No.
You can make people aware of that, but you certainly can't teach that.
Yeah. Well, it depends what upbringing you have and what you do in your before you go to uni, the way you act at school and stuff like that. And I'm seeing dividends are paying off for me because I was all right in school. I had good mates and I was not a dick to people. So I'm now able to
be the judge of that.
Call those people back up and go, do you want to be on the podcast and stuff like that. And obviously, you were my college tutor before. If we didn't have that relationship of it being you being my strength and conditioning coach, this would never happen. And then I don't know whatever in the future happens. So I just think making links so far in my life has been more important than anything my education has given me.
100%. Since I've been running my business self-employed, I've, without doubt, and bearing in mind this is only 18 months, maximum 18 months, I have learned more about people, the science, the application, making connections, everything that's involved to moving forward. I've learned more in that 18 months than I had the 10 years previous to that. And that's without, and I can say that hand on heart, and I'm actually moving forward on a daily basis because the people I speak to, for example, now on social media, even social media at the time when I was at uni it was still in its early phases, and what it was used for compared to what it's used for now is very, very different. And I follow people on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, who are experts in the field, but they are almost providing content on a daily basis. They're sparking discussions with other like-minded professionals, debates. it's a platform where even just by reading that on a daily basis, you're learning that probably, you know, when you're at uni, you can almost spark a debate with a lecturer or another student, and it can be quite easily dismissed because of the environment, where at least online, multiple professionals from different areas as well. It's not about a physio having a chat with a physio or an S&C with an S&C. All these different areas can come together as one, give their own kind of a take on how they would approach it, and you can come to best practice from that, which only moves the industry forward, but makes a coach even better by being well-rounded again, isn't it? It's well-rounded and understanding people. That is the key.
Yeah, and open-minded, because we've been trying to implement a bit of S&C into like the swimming side of it and what we've been doing, but a lot of coaches that we've spoke to and tried to communicate with have been difficult to do that because not many people know what S&C is. So in your mind, where does S&C, because a lot of people won't know really, S&C differ from, say, like personal training and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah. Good question. I know why you've asked that as well, because I have some quite strong opinions on that, and I think, you know, the term S&C, strength conditioning, has become a massive buzzword within the fitness industry.
It's saturated. A lot of people are using it.
That's what it is, and you see it everywhere now, and it does grind me. I'll be honest with you, and I almost try not to refer to myself as S&C to an extent, because what does that even mean? What does that even mean? People just assume it says strength conditioning. Yeah, obviously that's true, but there's so much more to it than that. And you see more and more nowadays physical therapists saying they provide S&C or giving S&C, and I think they're very two different professions. Yes, there are individuals out there who are both, and they're very good at what they do, but with them being both, they're not strictly your purist physio, or what you'd think of as a physio or a therapist with a lot of the manual therapy side of things and that. And they're not strictly your S&C, where they're just gym-based. It's a combination of two, and I think that actually is probably where the industry should be going. And I'm trying not to be biased, but I think from what my understanding of the research, when it comes to things like injury reduction or prevention, I don't like the word prevention because you can't prevent injury, but injury reduction, pain science, how you get an athlete back to full, ready to play, return to play, not just back on a pitch or a field. They're actually at the level they were before that injury and better. How you prepare them for that, both psychologically and physically. It's very, very complex. And it comes back to knowing the individual, it comes back to the research and the science, sticking to it, but understanding it as well. Because I think that's changing. I think I've gone off the topic a little bit, but going back to the kind of the personal training thing, is even what I've just said there, you can understand how complex it is. Now, personal training, don't get me wrong, there's so many good personal trainers out there who could and probably are strength conditioning coaches. They've got the scientific understanding of physiology and what's the word? Can't remember the word. Irrelevant. But they've got the scientific background and understanding. So they could cross over, but we're talking about a very small few there. Most personal trainers have gained a qualification either online, some of them can get them online within 6 weeks. That requires, that's just a money-making scheme, and yet they're then promoting that they can train athletes and they can return athletes from injury and all this and that. And you can see in itself how that's just ridiculous and dangerous. But the average person, and I've met again quite a few athletes of decent level who don't understand the difference between going to see a personal trainer for strength and conditioning and actually a strength conditioning coach, or even a physiotherapist running strength conditioning, because the skill is a serious set of skills. And knowledge. I don't go around saying, and I use this as an example, and I think it's almost undermining S&C in itself, but I'm not a body composition coach. I don't treat people who come in morbidly obese, for example, to try and get them to lose significant amount of weight. Could I do that? I believe I've got enough understanding of the skills to do that, but I still also know that body composition coach, top quality level personal trainers are way better than me. So I'm not there like trying to brand myself as them.
You're not
I don't think it should be.
Coach, body composition coach.
Absolutely, and so I do think there's it's like anything within the fitness industry, isn't it? It's a marketing scam half the time. So I think from that sense, it's educating coaches, because that's the key. Educating athletes, but I don't think the athletes are as much of the problem as it is the coaches. The people who run clubs, the support mechanisms, they don't have enough understanding or appreciation of the importance of S&C. Don't expect them to, but it's almost like, well, if you're going to guide an athlete to undertake physical training, then you've got to have enough understanding between the difference, because you could be holding them back or causing them injury. I've known personal trainers who, one in particular, worked with a group of youth netball players, and I, for example, run the Lincolnshire Netball Academy under 17s and below. Now, when you're working with youth athletes, again, the science is misunderstood. S&C is doing a fantastic job working with youth athletes, and really you're going to see the benefits of that over the next sort of 10 years. But you've also got to be very careful with youth athletes for obvious reasons, because they're going through development. Now, if you're a personal trainer and you're working with youth athletes, now can you imagine how dangerous that could be? Frightening. And I've had a conversation with one how they would train a youth athlete for their sport, or you don't get so sport specific, but as an example, and you're just looking at them thinking you have zero idea of the negative effects of that. Yet you have full confidence that is correct and you could do it. So if that's happening, if I'm seeing that with one person, that's happening everywhere to a certain extent.
I think it's because it's easier for a club to pick up a personal trainer or a physiotherapist to help them than go through the runs of finding a strength and conditioning coach, and at that a good one, because there are a lot of average personal trainers and a lot of average physiotherapists that will spout a lot of shit, but when it comes to providing, if they're doing a general program for 30 athletes, it's never going to be specific, and you're never going to be able to push those athletes to the best of their ability.
I'd agree. Absolutely. That it's and that's the thing, isn't it? It's like anything, when you changing mindsets, changing cultures, perceptions. It's difficult. It takes time, and with strength and conditioning predominantly being quite elitist based, most coaches do work in elite sport full time. You don't get too many independent ones like myself, but that, like I say, with the amount of individuals going through the full degrees and it becoming oversaturated, I use the example of, take a sports therapist for example. There's one on every corner now. There's, in Lincoln where we are alone, I bet there's probably 20 plus sports therapists, not physiotherapists, because physiotherapists are a much more highly skilled, a lot more in-depth training, more understanding of the science. I'm not saying they're always better, but in terms of at least the process they have to go through. Sports therapists, you can get up to that level, but that again, most of them are like level 3. They've probably done a year qualification maximum, and they're everywhere. And because you have that word sport in front, everyone goes, right, I'm injured, let's go see a sports therapist. Of course, they have boundaries to how much they can work and guide, but from what I've seen and know of certain ones, they are guiding and working with athletes from acute injury almost all the way from return to play, and they've got no really what credentials have they got to do that. Some of them will know, probably through experience and their own research, but do you know what I mean? It's a very grey area at the moment, and you're absolutely right. Coaches don't have a clue, so they go, we need to do this injury prevention term because it's everywhere, another buzzword that completely misunderstood. So they go, right, what does a physio or a sports therapist do? They work with people who are injured, so let's get them in. They can do some injury prevention sessions, and before you know it, it's you've got a group of athletes working with someone who they will make them better because they're probably doing something they should be doing, but long term, what really are they getting from it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think it's a grey area, and again, we could go into more depth with all this, and it would be nice to think that this would spark a discussion, because I'm sure there's therapists who will listen to this and go, well, I don't agree with this and that, and I'm not branding all therapists, like you can't brand everyone, but my experience and what I've seen from individuals out there, and maybe certain people might hear something like this and go, yeah, maybe I'm in that box, because it's important to reflect where you are. So yeah,
for people that don't really know like your process, how would you get a new client in? How would you assess them and put them through like a program in order to recover? For example, if they're recovering from, say, like me with a shoulder injury, how would you start off?
Yeah, so I mean, I always with everyone naturally, and that again, this is the benefits of being independent, working with individuals, and you've got that kind of probably a little bit more flexibility than working with a big squad of players, which a lot of, again, S&C coaches do, the minimal contact time, which makes it more challenging. So that's a skill in itself.
Yeah.
But I always have a consultation with a movement screening, so it's basically a chance for me to get to meet them, really build that rapport like we talked about at the beginning, find out virtually everything about them, their sporting history, their injury history, because that creates a massive picture in itself. Like the biggest predictor of a future injury is a past injury. So we can look at that straight away. I've taken for a series of movement tests, which all that really identifies. It doesn't predict injury, like I say, but it does identify where a program should kind of be started and where the plan should be looking to go, both short and long term. So you can look at stuff like muscle imbalances and how certain areas of the body might be kind of imbalanced between stronger and weaker, things like that. And then when you relate to the biomechanics of their sports and the demands of their game, how that could affect technique, how that could, again, increase injury risk. And that's all an S&C, a good quality S&C. Their primary role really should be to try and reduce injury risk. That is their primary role, because if an athlete's not injured and it's a robust athlete, strong, doesn't crumble under physical load that's required in all sports at all levels, can recover well, can basically do what's asked of them, then that's a good athlete in itself, and that will make them a better athlete, even without even looking at high levels of strength, high levels of speed, power. You could argue that those two work hand in hand, and that's what I believe. They're not independent of each other. They work together to create a better athlete. Someone like yourself with the shoulder injury, we looked at mechanisms of why you suffer from certain pain. You've had chronic long-term shoulder problems, and you've seen multiple physios that's really not helped you in any shape or form, because one, they've not got to understand you or your history, and this is again another gripe, is because if you don't understand the person, pain is complex. Pain isn't very rarely just mechanical. When we talk
something
about
behind it.
There's so many, they call it psychosocial. So it's, you're looking at how the brain perceives the pain, what's their environment been through that could increase pain, what kind of circumstances, how many people suffer pain at night more than they do in the day. It's quite common because they know that when they're in pain they won't sleep, so that kind of almost subconscious fear of, right, it's time for bed now, and now I'm not going to get any sleep, and all of a sudden their pain and anxiety increases. So it's complex. I'm not an expert in pain science. It's something I try and learn, regularly increase, because I can advise and provide enough knowledge to the athlete, because that's important in return to play from injury. But again, that is the role of a good quality physio or sports therapist that probably isn't being provided. So again, that's another big topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can start to see how broad S&C is, but not.
Yeah.
It's very specific, but very broad, which, in my opinion, any good quality coach should have.
Do you think that hinders like your ability to put across points, because it's so specific, but at the same time, like I've just explained, there's so many different elements that can affect that thing. But I think that's just as much with any industry. Like you can narrow it down to be we're gaining strength, we're doing specific movements for that, like to repair an injury or to recover from an injury, but then also we're doing all this sort of stuff kind of subconsciously, but kind of consciously to combat future injury, to combat sort of all sorts. So do you think that hinders any sort of...
I think, for me, this is why I try and have weekly, fortnightly contact with clients. Even if you don't see them for a month, you try and still speak to them regularly to get feedback, constant feedback, where they are, mood state, where they feel they are, because it's that subjective analysis compared to where I can look at objective analysis in terms of like acute variables within their program, load monitoring, trying to look at kind of, are they progressively getting better objectively, but all those subjective areas that are down to you, the individual, and how you perceive what's going on, are really the main factor. And that's where you're right. It's very difficult. Sometimes it can get overly complicated, and it's down to me to try and simplify and be powerful.
Yeah.
That I admit I've made mistakes in that. That comes with experience, and the more you kind of work with individuals, and you need to make those mistakes. That's normal. But really the easiest way of doing it is when an individual starts to feel stronger, more robust, the pain starts to decrease because of the physiological mechanisms that are happening through good strength conditioning, then that is the single most powerful thing on its own. So the start can be the most difficult, the first 2 to 6 weeks, but when the body starts to adapt from what the stimulus it's being put through, you can speak for yourself. You're a good example where if you stop training for, say, a week, your pain levels might start to increase. Yeah. So that gives you instant feedback and probably confidence, knowing that, right, if I get back on it, I can decrease my pain sensitivity just by doing that.
Yeah.
And that's in itself, how powerful is that?
Yeah. If you don't have any motivation to go to the gym, but the only motivation you have is that I won't feel shit for like a while, that's, if you don't have any prior motivation and you don't do a sport or anything like that, that's always something to
absolutely.
Think about. And that's going to be a consequence of you not training, then it's going to give you more motivation to train.
Completely that. And I think, working with quite a wide range of ages, it sounds ridiculous almost, but an athlete who has been injured or is injured, doesn't matter what level, is almost easier to work with than someone who's never had any problems, because they're almost confident and almost cocky that what they've ever done in the past is right. Yeah. Which, how can you argue with that? But when we talk about the complexity of injuries and pains, then it's about giving them enough knowledge and understanding of why this is still really, really important.
That's what kind of confuses me about coaches when we've been trying to communicate and push with coaches, is that they've definitely seen injury and they've definitely tried to combat it, but why aren't they doing more in order to stop that from ever happening? Not stop it from ever happening again, because you never can, but decrease the chances of it happening.
Yeah, it's down to poor knowledge. I think, again, you put a coach in the terms, it could be any type of coach, doesn't have to be within sport. And what makes a good quality coach is someone who's willing to adapt, like you said, open-minded, willing to move forward, move with the times, learn from other professions. Yeah. And most coaches, it's their way or no way. Yeah. And I think that comes from a little bit of insecurity. Again, I'll be the first to admit, at times you can be insecure that people question your methods, and you think, well, you don't really know what you're on about, so why are you questioning me? But actually, that's more just insecurity on my behalf. And over time, you need to learn to deal with that, how you'd provide the right knowledge, but you can't please everyone. And again, you know, I speak to certain coaches, and it is true, I do agree with this, is mostly what S&Cs do, especially in like squads, is they're just trying to reverse the effects of what the coaches put them through. Because coaches don't really care. Modern coaches, you see it more and more, have probably a bit of background, or they have more appreciation of the sports science. So they use the sports science and they use the data, they use their evidence to how they train players, coach players, things like maybe tactical sessions, the volume, the amount of intensity. They use that at different peaks in relation to where their squad is, which is, again, highly complex, very, very forward thinking, and I think it's something that'll happen more and more. But at the same time, if a coach puts any sport through high volumes of training and practice followed by competition, loads of technical practice, repetitively focusing on that technique, which is important for all sports, but also very dangerous to overuse injuries, then this is what you see. You see these, especially from a youth age, they get into the later teens and they start crumbling down because they've just basically done the same thing over and over again for thousands of hours, and their coach has pushed them harder and harder because it's that kind of old school mentality of be mentally strong, grind out your practice, rather than actually just a bit of simple monitoring that every athlete can do with the right tool, and it will just help them not do too much too soon. It'll help them build their practice up, because it's the same as a gym program. A good quality strength conditioning program, as you know yourself, you don't go hard and heavy straight away. You progressively build it up, give the body a chance to adapt to what it's being put through. How's that any difference to learning a new technique in your sport or practice sessions? The same principles apply, and I think more and more S&Cs are having an influence on athletes' practice. I certainly do with the golfers I work with. I give them some tools to monitor how much they do, so they're not just basically practicing all day every day and getting all these overuse soft tissue injuries, which is, I think there's something about 80% of injuries are overuse injuries in all sports. So you're just trying to reverse the effects of that, which, when you think about it, you know, with a little bit more forward thinking from the right areas, then S&C could be even more powerful.
So how do you see it going? And like, obviously you're one of the only ones in Lincolnshire that's specifying strength and conditioning,
as far as I'm aware, or independent at least.
How do you see it going from here for like the whole industry of strength and conditioning?
I think it's all down to numbers, isn't it? And it's like anything, oversaturation results in essentially the ratio of people going for the same job becomes greater, and as a result, those hiring can offer less and less money because they know they're going to get someone who's going to apply, who's still going to be good, still going to be qualified. It's a shame, and I think that's happening in sport from the very beginning. I mean, there's not many good quality jobs in sport, really. There's a lot of different types of jobs, but good quality jobs, there's not many.
Is it? It's like just a natural cycle, isn't it, with everything? Like natural selection, that everyone will come through, and then, use of a better term, like the weak will be filtered out.
That's exactly what it is. That is exactly what it is, and you know, you hear these stories where people moan that they've spent all this money on education, this qualified, that qualified, this experience, and they can't even get an interview. Which, being there myself, it's true, it's tough. But if your goals are, and this is where you almost revert back to the very beginning, if your goals are realistic and you're in it for the long term, then you stick at it and eventually it'll happen. If you keep moving forward, it'll happen. But because that, if you told someone, right, after 5 years of finishing university, even after masters, because masters is becoming just the next progression now. Most people are having to do it because a degree isn't worth anything. If you accept that, then you'll have a chance, but you've got to think what's going to come with that. I mean, like financial dependence after spending all that money and time educating.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be earning anywhere near as much as other people who probably finished uni 5 years previous to you in other industries.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. It's like trying to make people aware that it's tough. You don't kind of get told really how tough it is, because most people who work in sport or want to work in sport, they don't want to go work at the local gym, which that's the easiest way to work in sport in some capacity.
Yeah.
But that's not really, you don't need a sports science degree to be a personal trainer.
Yeah.
Yet, how many people are personal trainers after going to do a degree in sports science or something related? It's just so common. Is it that their fault? No, but that's what I mean. People need to be, the individuals who are probably teaching and lecturing this need to be making that aware.
Yeah.
And also how the industry is changing. Psychology is probably going to become the next big thing, where it becomes more mainstream and more understood. Sports analysis, statistical analysis is becoming enormous, but they've both got their massive barriers and problems, just like strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. For me, I think I've just about got in at the time where, I'm not saying it's easy, I'd love to have had it 5 years even before that, but just about got in that time where I can still progress to the levels I want to get without having some of the barriers that people who are at university now.
Yeah.
But again, that's the same with everything. It's down to universities at the end of the day. It's down to universities and colleges and others who are working in sport to help move it forward, and they're moving it forward in certain ways incredibly well, but in other ways they're probably holding it back.
How do you feel, like, having been through the university process, how do you feel it? Did it serve you well, or do you think doing something else would have been more beneficial?
No, I mean, like I say, if you want to work in elite sports science, you need to have gone to university. There's no two ways about that. But all it did, if I'm honest, it gave me a piece of paper and the chance to do what I wanted to do. It gave me the license to do it.
Yeah.
To get to that next step, I'm going to have to spend more money, more time, more education to be able to go further and further. It's a never-ending process, but again, that's something you've got to accept. But the one thing university gave me, and this was the biggest thing it gave me, and I think this is the essence of university. I don't think very, very few people get it. And I'm not trying to big that up. I don't know why, but it might have been just from experience of education in the past, is the ability to critically think. Yeah. So that, if you can be a critical thinker independently, and assess and weigh up a whole variety of arguments and research and kind of draw, conclusions that are not biased. That is what will allow you to move forward, because it provides you that open-minded thinking where other areas, other industries can make you better by learning from what they do. Not just being that kind of tunnel vision on the strength and conditioning world or the strength and conditioning research, because research is biased. Research moves with the times. It gets disproven, and we're in that world now as well where everyone says, I use the science, I'm scientific thinking, all this and that, but that can be dangerous in itself. So you've got to be, if you're a critical thinker, you at least then become aware that it's not all about the science, and it's not all about subjective opinion and coach's opinion. It's a combination of everything that you've got to come to the right answer yourself and learn from others. And that's something I would never in a million years have appreciated and be applying in my day-to-day life if I hadn't gone to university. But I'm not sure, that's not, certainly, and I know this for a fact, through friends and
and meeting other people and whatnot, that's not like a given. It's not like you go to university and everyone comes out a critical thinker. Far from it. It's just that if you're kind of along those lines, it can help that kind of blossom.
Yeah.
Which for me is, I think that's so important, really important.
I think a lot of people use university as a way to avoid, this is like my opinion, avoid going into a proper working life, a way to delay it essentially. But if someone's like 50-50 on university, what is your like thinking of what they should do? Should they like continue to do more research into the industry they want to be in and progress from there, or should they go to university and just see what happens because then they'll have something to fall back on, take a year off to think about it?
I think that time when you finish college or your A levels, typically that's a really important time in your life because you're 18. You kind of turn that way. You get that kind of privileges of being an adult, and I do believe that is one of the most important years of your life because it's a transitional year. Yeah. So to go from essentially being, you're not a kid, but you kind of still, laws, regulations, you're still treated as a kid. Yeah. There's so little you can do in certain areas. To go into being all that freedom is it's an overnight thing, isn't it? Literally, it's an overnight thing. And I've seen it myself when teaching, like, start of the year, second year of college, you got a group of 30 people and you see the ones who start to turn 18 because their mindset's starting to change because they start going out, they start drinking, they start having more of this freedom, and you literally see it in front of your eyes. Like the start of the year, that this character is potentially quite polite, or they don't, what I mean? And then all of a sudden, they're a totally different person because they're getting more life experience with adults. Yeah. So I think have a year out. Yeah. Give yourself a chance to kind of grow up, get some more experience as an adult. You start to learn yourself more from that, and then you know what you want to achieve. Yeah. You have an idea. You might not be 100% sure, but then that goal becomes a bit more clear where you want to get. You then might take a step back and go, well, instead of looking at what university I want to go to because of their standings or the sport, the course they offer, you might start looking at who the lecturer is there in that field. Yeah. So when you go to there, they might have one of the best biomechanists in sport, and you go there because of him. Yeah. Because that's going to make you achieve your goal, learn from the very best. Yeah. You might be at an absolute what's classed as a dog shit university, which means jack in itself. Yeah. Because that's what's going to make you better, isn't it? Yeah. That's what's going to make you better. So I would say that 100%. I'm looking at hopefully over the next 12 months to go and to do some research, kind of looking at biomechanics, pain, and the strength and conditioning, how that all interlinks. Yeah. And I'm in the process at the moment looking who would I want to mentor me in that area, not where it is, but who it is. Yeah. Exactly. Who's current, and because what that provides then, like let's just say they are well known in their field of that subject area and that specific sport, that means they're going to be working potentially already and have contacts with high level coaches, high level athletes. Yeah, and that's going to put you right in the middle of that. Yeah. And that's way better than having, a piece of research put out there that doesn't really mean, it might mean something, but you to get that out there then becomes a lot harder than I'm already in it. Yeah. And for me, someone like myself, I would probably pick up work in itself, and and I know I'm obviously at a different stage, but I think the same principle applies. Yeah. So
finding something that you go into uni, you might as well spend your money where it counts and be somewhere where you know that you're going to get a really good experience from a very knowledgeable professor or lecturer, instead of just going somewhere because clubs are good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think back to when you were, what was it, January 2017?
When we started.
So January 2017 when you were, your UCAS application had to be in, I think it's the end of January.
There's a lot of pressure to
and it's almost like you start your second year in September, and within the space of 4 months, you have to have known where you want to go, written this application, prove that what you want to do and why you want to be there, when the majority of the people are like, well, I don't know where I want to go, I don't really know what I want to study, I don't know what that course will give me, and it's like people just, right, okay, I'll get my application in just so I've got it, and then they end up going off to uni, and it takes them probably a year and a half to 2 years to really settle down.
Yeah.
And in that time, they've already lost 2 years, where they could have been making great contacts, they could have been learning their trade a bit quicker. That's not their fault, I believe.
Yeah.
I believe that's again, mentorship.
Yeah.
You know, really kind of guiding someone and making them aware. But you can also make people aware, and at that age, you need to make your own decision and your own errors, don't you? So.
Well, even in first year of sixth form, because I did 1 year, I was feeling the pressure of going to uni, and I probably would have just written a UCAS application and gone, because you were very pressured, and obviously my school was very small, so they wanted you to go to university and do very well in your A levels. Obviously, like, they want you to, but it'll look better on them. So you kind of live in someone else's dream. And I never really felt like uni would have provided me with anything else if I was going into, for example, coaching, than 5 years of experience would at all. So I don't know, it's very difficult to decide at that point, like that turning point. So I decided to not stay on at sixth form, and I went to college kind of because I wasn't 18 yet, so that and you have to stay in education, but I thought a college BTEC would be more useful to me than 4 Ds at A level, because I'm not very academic in that sense. So I don't know, the whole system is kind of pushing you towards university, but a lot of people will feel like that's not for them but still go. And the process in which get into it is relatively quite simple, like the application and all that it's an easy option, and it's easier than like living and actually getting a job and stuff. So it's interesting to kind of hear the mindsets, because obviously for me, I mean, I went to uni coming up to 10 years ago when I started, so 10 years is a long time, and everything's changed in your life, and you probably forget what your mindset was a little bit back then. But I think when I was lecturing a full university degree here, it was because that came straight after. So I basically finished my degree and went straight into lecturing. Basically, people who were only 2 years younger than me, and marking work and lecturing subject areas that I'd been learning only 2 years previous to that. So that's a really sharp learning curve. And I look back now and I think, God, how different I'd do it. But it's amazing how those people on that course, which is what you're talking about now, I was trying to make them aware that they're in it now. So they're in it, like they're in their second year. In 2 years' time, you'll be graduated, you'll be needing a job, you need to stand out. And in that 2 years, I'd be honest, other than one person, maybe two, at a push, did I make aware, did the penny drop, essentially, where they really gave everything they could in those 2 years, both academically and outside of that, to be able to walk into the job they wanted. I do hope they're not listening to this. But it just shows you that, you know, for someone like me, I'd just been through it. It was current to me. I was making them more aware. Maybe that was an error in itself, but making them more aware than any other lecturer would, because most lecturers aren't bothered about that. I had a lot of contact time with them individually because there was a small group, and we did their sport work outside of the college, so it wasn't always just in a classroom. So you got to know them on a personal level really well, and never really sunk in for them. And that probably just, in a nutshell, shows you that, like you said, with like the S&C industry of all these coaches, the best always rise to the top. It's a fact. Like, just because you go to uni and just because you want to do something, doesn't mean you will. Some people are just good and some people aren't, or some people are willing. Do you know what I mean? I think we've got to a little bit of a state now where this equal opportunity, well, not equal opportunity, but almost like
if everyone goes through the same pathway, everyone come out the same.
Yeah.
But, you know, the percentage of people coming out and successfully getting to where they want to get is so minimal for so many factors, isn't it? And I think we do forget that sometimes, massively.
Yeah.
You know? Related to sport, why does an athlete not make it to the top? There's so many factors of why, and so many uncontrollable factors. It's that nature versus nurture kind of argument. And that's the same with university, education, academia, coaching. All you want to look at is the same across the board.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we do just forget that the majority of people just ain't going to get to where they want to get.
Yeah.
You know? Quite black and white, quite you know, harsh if you want to look at it like that way, but that's reality, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's how I know. I'm not saying who am I to turn around and say that to someone, but sometimes people...
You could easily, at university, just do your work, get along, and complete it. But whether you want to put in that extra work, like we said, it's a completely different mindset. And obviously, like, if the penny drops, But
yeah, and that's why some people, they'll do the 3 years, they might float through, and then they might have a couple of years where they reflect, they might just work a dead-end job, you know, understand themselves, and then the penny might drop then later on in life, and they still go on and achieve these fantastic things. Where with others, they're like a first-class student, they do all this great work experience, make these great contacts. Basically, everything that you push a student to do, they come out and within 3 years, they're not even in that industry. They've gone total change.
Yeah.
And that, again, everyone's different. Everyone has their own. People change at different times, and you know, I think that's why so few make it, because it's very rarely. It's not kind of how academically smart you are. Book smart is what we call it. I remember someone saying that to me, a coach who's incredibly good coach, and he says problem nowadays with, you know, lecturers. He's even talking about lecturers and students that they're very book smart, but they're not street smart.
Yeah.
And I think that's always I really appreciate that comment. I really do, and I think it should ring true to more people that, you know, you need both if you're going to get to where you want to get.
Okay. Should we have a quick break?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thirsty. I'm waiting water. All right. We'll be straight back. Hello and welcome back. I say that every time, and I'm gonna keep using that because it's become a meme now. We're still here with Samuel. He's still on login.
Still here to bore you to death.
But we're going to talk about some bit of different stuff, because we talk quite in depth about strength and conditioning. We're still going to be on those kind of topics because that's what this podcast is going to be about. If you want to listen to one that's not as serious or not as like focused on education and that sort of thing, then obviously there's the others out there.
In the wrong place. Yeah,
you're on the wrong video. But we're going to talk about like general gym motivation. Sam's obviously said that it's January and everyone's got that kind of new year, new me motivation and stuff like that. So how would you say someone that's new to gym should approach a new gym program? Do you think they should research it or find someone to help them with it?
Good question. Good question, because I guess, you know, again, it depends on you, what your background is, really. I think if you, for example, are maybe grown up, or you've got some history playing sport, even if that's just like you know, with your friends or whatnot, you've still got some history where, you know, fitness, training, getting fitter, losing weight, building muscle, the kind of general people most focus on, then straight away you've got an advantage with your mindset normally. Whereas if you've kind of someone who's never had any background in that, you've decided to make a life change, whether that's for health reasons or whatever it may be, then I believe 100% get some professional support. Because not only will that give you the structure that you will need to begin with, because it's that breaking a habit, that first probably month will be the hardest month once you're trying to get in your routine, once you're trying to learn your barriers and how much you can actually really push past those barriers, because It's something you've never probably experienced before, and most people don't really know how hard they can push their body. So professional support, 100%. It'll give you a bit more confidence and trust in what you're doing. It'll give you that plan, which will give you that extra motivation and focus, and again, what you need if you're actually serious about it. And actually, again, having some realistic goals. It all comes back to that, is the psychology of the individual. You know, we all have our own barriers. We all have things that probably prevent us from moving forward, and kind of, you know, negative thoughts when are not best helpful. Everyone has that.
Yeah.
It's not just isolated to your general person. I say your general person, but as in someone who might be overweight, and just works 9 to 5 and probably don't have much of hobbies. It's the same kind of mindset in a roundabout way for them that it is for, say, someone who's on a world level of their sport. Everyone's psychology, all human beings at the end of the day. So, 100. I think, does that answer your question?
It's very strange. Like, I did a gym program that was kind of my own. I made it up, not made it up, but when I got there on the day, I was like, whatever I want to do, I'll do that. Compared to having someone, a strength and conditioning coach, tell me a program, you feel kind of obligated to do it. You're not only just because you're paying money to do it, because you have someone that not necessarily relying on you. It's difficult, but if you have a training partner, for example, like someone you go to the gym with, it's hard to turn them down because it feels like you're letting them down. It's the same with having a gym program with someone that's written it for you. Like, you feel like you're letting them down if you're not doing it. So for someone who's just starting out doing a gym program, it's probably really good to get a PT or a therapist or a physiotherapist to write you a program, and it will help you to progress forward for yourself. So I think that's a better way to go than just to go, right, I'm going to start going to the gym, because a lot of people say that but never will do it. And I go to the gym on my own, and I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't have a program, I don't think.
I do get that, and it's interesting. You know, I could use myself as a great example where, for me, my training is really since I've started, all my time and focus and energy has gone into building my business, and does for obvious reasons. And this is kind of the first year of any new business, you know, is the hardest, and I've definitely experienced that. I've got through that. It's moving forward, but it's still tough. So for me, training became a lot lower on the list than I'd like to admit, really, because if I had an hour and a half, say for example, to train in the day or the evening or whatever, then my mindset was, well, actually that hour and a half could be spent doing something more important for me to grow. And because I work, you know, pretty much to earliest morning to late at night, all hours, it's the long days, then, you know, you think, well, you can always find that time. And it's not always about finding the time, it's about the mindset of what it means to you. So for someone like myself who understands the importance of all of it, way more than anyone else there, really, and yet still puts it lower on the list than it gives an example of how, if I can do it, then surely everyone else can do it. If that makes sense. You know, it's no surprise that people don't make it a priority or don't have make the time for it. And for me, this, you know, in the summer, when I was starting to get my work-life balance in order and starting to get a bit more consistency with clients, income, professional kind of studying, all that sort of stuff, I made it kind of a bit of a goal to make sure that make the time for that training, make the time every day to have a set period in that day. Yes, I will probably fall behind on something that I see as important, but actually, for me to progress, the benefits of training physically, both psychologically and physically, and how it helps your body to keep fresh and mentally on it,
Yeah.
will actually only give me more benefits to progress forward. So it's something that over the last 5 months really that it's becoming a priority, which it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but yet it became quite low down on the list, even though you work in with physical fitness. It's almost, you can see how well that seems a bit odd, it's a bit almost contradictory, isn't it? But it just shows you that it's a mindset, and it's finding a balance in your life, and that's the hardest thing, is finding that balance of what's important to you.
Yeah.
Most people would rather, have an extra hour in bed, or go for a coffee and a cake nowadays with their friends for an hour, rather than go to the gym for an hour.
Yeah.
But yet you can do all of that because you'll probably actually have more energy and that physical health if you just set some time apart. Even like a lot of the research is showing now that just forget about everything you kind of see with the government policies, and won't kind of go along the lines of kind of type 2 diabetes and heart disease, but for most people, even just training for twice a week for an hour of the right type of training can significantly increase the health benefits that's associated with it. So you don't have to be a gym rat where you're training 6 days a week, and you've got getting all your protein shakes down you, and you've got your gym vests on all the time. You don't need that, but a good trainer will make that aware. And again, that's probably another. I read a really, really good quote on Twitter the other day about, if you want to be a good coach or a good trainer and help people long term and get to where you want to get long term, you don't want to be that person who loves training so therefore they coach. You want to be that person who coaches and loves training.
Yeah.
And a lot of trainers, especially personal trainers, they love the gym, and that's why they get into personal training. They go, oh well, I train every day, so I know what I'm doing, so I'll go into personal training.
Yeah.
Well, that won't last long term, that mindset, and you're in it for the wrong reasons, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I think for someone that's new to doing a gym program and you're looking for a gym or somewhere to train, make it as easy as possible for yourself. So what I did was I found one that was on the way back from my work, so I just go straight after work, and it's harder for you to then turn it down than it is to go, because especially because I've got a program, I would feel guilty if I didn't. So making it easy for yourself is just as big a thing as finding the best place possible. And as long as they've got the equipment you need at that gym and the environment's all right, then every gym's fine. Like, you can do it wherever. You can even do it at home, I guess, if you're just doing like a floor plan or something. Then it's really simple.
I think the biggest thing in kind of like the fitness industry, and I'm talking about that through knowledge, but I'm the first to admit, I don't work in that industry, so I don't know it inside out.
Yeah.
But I've seen it enough, and where I'm based, it's still a commercial gym. I'm not in that gym, as you know, but I still go through it. I still occasionally in it when it's busy, so I still get to see kind of that gym mentality. And the biggest thing is with gyms is they're not, especially for newcomers, but even experienced people, they're not a particularly nice environment.
It's quite intimidating.
It is. You get a lot of, let's be honest, you get a lot of idiots in gyms.
Yeah.
You get, especially kind of the now weightlifters who are very, that kind of male dominant characters, and they try to be, egotistical. They're almost, if you're a newcomer to that gym, so if you look at it from a male perspective and you go, right, well, I want to get into resistance training, the last thing you want to be doing is walking into the middle of, your dumbbell sets, your free weights, while there's a load of meatheads there grunting like nutters in their wife beaters. That's not inspiring. Yeah. And actually, it's quite pathetic half the time. Or if you're a female who's a little bit overweight and you want to start doing, again, I wouldn't say you need to be doing cardio, but typically they would do cardio, and you've got loads of women in there who are kind of like in really good shape, and you know what I mean? Yeah. That's quite a negative experience to get into, and you've got to be very mentally strong and know exactly what you want to get past that barrier. Yeah. People get past that barrier. Once they've done it 3 or 4 weeks, they stop caring. Yeah. But unfortunately, doing it for 3 and 4 weeks is the hardest thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think gyms and trainers, I don't think they're the best at promoting it and kind of making people feel relaxed, because it's not I'm certainly talking about the people who need to be doing more physical activity, are the ones who need it for health benefits, not for aesthetics and to look good in the mirror and post it on Instagram. These are ones who are overweight, who, like the epidemic of type 2 diabetes, which is, because nobody exercises anymore, people just sit on their arse. That's modern society because of how we've created it. But is there enough of the right support and pathways for people to get going? I'm not so sure there is, if I'm honest. But I'm probably not the most qualified individual to truly talk about that. But I don't know. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think, you've got to just learn to, like, after those 3 weeks or whatever, that time period, that is the most difficult time to start and carry on. But you've got to realise that no one actually cares. I think there's probably 1% of the people that go to the gym that actually will go home, like, you judge someone and then go home thinking about that person, like judging them, like, for the rest of your day. Everyone else just might go, oh, they're a little bit overweight. Then completely, it's not lingering in your head. But then for someone that is struggling or is overweight, they'll be like, oh, everyone's thinking about me. I'm nervous because everyone's thinking about me, and it's a horrible environment because of that. But I think that's just, you go walk down the street. Just because you're in the gym, it probably shows more commitment to trying to improve yourself, and it's just one of those things in life. And if you want to change something, you might as well put yourself through it, and then show those people that if they do judge you, show those people that you don't really care what they think. You're going to do the same thing.
I agree, and I think it's easy to say that to certain people. Like, come on, get a grip of this. It's not a big problem. But obviously, the reality is much more difficult. But I do think that, gyms are gyms. It's a massive industry now. Again, it's another industry that's oversaturated. I mean, Lincoln alone has probably 20 plus gyms, and the membership costs get lower and lower because there's so many types of gyms. But what about, you don't have to, sports clubs, so many sports are fun, it's competitive, you get to meet loads of different people, you can play with people who are at a complete beginner level and they want to play for that social side. It's regular activity, but you don't feel like you're in a gym, like working your arse off to get. And the benefits of that, I think, is something that would be fantastic. A different way of getting all your benefits without having to walk into a gym. You're probably better off, for example, go to your local running club, who might have twice weekly sessions where there's 10 of you, all similar ages, all similar backgrounds. That's exciting, and before you know it, you're making friends, you're meeting up with them outside, and long term that can then lead to let's go for a run together at the weekend. And before you know it, you've done 4 or 5 sessions and you're running good distance, and you're getting all the health benefits. You might be dropping weight. So there's different ways of looking at it, but sometimes if you're serious, you've got to do a bit of background research. If that's what you want to, if you actually want to make a change, don't just think, well, I'll join my gym, and because I've got a membership, I'll go. Because obviously it's so much more complex than that, isn't it? And
you might feel like that at the start. But then everything, like, not dies out, but you'll lose motivation because it's not varying. And if you're doing a generic gym program, it won't pique your interest at all.
No, exactly. It's so it is tough. And again, it's those education, changing your nutrition. You don't have to be one of these bodybuilder type individuals who have their meal prep all set out in their tubs, do it on like a Sunday afternoon for the whole week, and they're getting their proteins and all macros and all that. You don't have to be that level, but just eating more of the right stuff, and a bit of research, a bit more quality, a bit more fresh food, a lot less sugar. That the benefits of that, of giving you more of the right energy and alertness, and the links between kind of poor nutrition and depression. So mental health side can then actually push you forward to want to do more exercise. So it can be a vicious circle, but at the same time you can reverse that by just getting the right advice from the right people and doing the right type of background research, I guess. But is that harder than I'm making out? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It is hard to start anything. Like you're always going to find trouble. Like you want to work on your own body and make yourself better or help yourself, but starting from nothing is so difficult, and especially with a process, you won't see gains from day to day, but you've just got to stick at it. And
I think that's why it's important working with a professional.
Yeah.
Especially in the short term, because they can give you the tools and the system, even if you only work with them for say 8 to 12 weeks. But then in that time, you'll see the progression, but you'll understand what you need to do moving forward. So yeah, it might be a big chunk of money, but there's plenty of decent enough trainers out there who are quite cheap. You can pay monthly or you can pay per session, whatever. If you're serious, you'd only go spend that money on probably alcohol or eating out. So I think it comes down to just that willpower. What you really where you want to get, but willpower is the hardest, and it's almost like links into what we talked about earlier about long term and being aware and being realistic. It's the same thing what you want in your career and your job to maybe what you want in your fitness life. And it all links, doesn't it? It's all the same kind of mentality, and that's why again a good coach and a good mentor is so important. I think a good example was probably summertime, because where I'm based, I have my business cards accessible to the general public. And you know yourself, it's quite clear that I work with sports. It's quite clear that I'm strength and conditioning on my business card. There's access to my website. You go on my website. I've had feedback. It's pretty clear. There's no confusion of what I do. But anyway, long story short, someone contacted me who was a member at the gym, and they wanted to lose weight. They wanted a personal trainer. I asked them outright, are you looking for a personal trainer, or are you looking for sport specific? And they said personal trainer, so I put them in the direction of the actual personal trainer who worked here. Now, I don't believe, from speaking to the personal trainer, because I couldn't remember her name at the time, that she got in contact with him. I've seen her in the gym. We don't know each other, but we know each from face or something. And I'm pretty confident she has had no professional support. Now she's clearly doing stuff, and she'll be making headway, but she'll hit a brick wall soon because of the type of training she's doing. And I think for me, although I don't work that stuff, I would love to just turn around to her and say, you know what, I will help you, because I know I can help you reach your goals better than you're doing now. But for her, she still needs a good quality personal trainer. And she's probably spoken to the personal trainer and gone, you know what, I don't think you're going to help me, or you're not worth the money, or what you've told me isn't actually that great. And that's it, isn't it? If you meet a personal trainer or a coach, some of them are quite arrogant, because, like I said before, all they're bothered about is their own training. It's almost like, I'm in this gym all the time anyway, so I might as well get some money out of it. Again, I'm not tarnishing all them with the same brush, but you agree, don't you? And it can be, if you're a new customer, it can be very off-putting. So it's almost like I don't work with people like that, not because I don't do it because I'm a specialist in what I do, and I charge the money for that, and there's specialists in body composition and good quality personal training, they charge the money for that. So she's much better off seeing someone like that. But again, there's probably the same amount of really high quality personal trainers and body comp coaches as there is S&C. And that's it, isn't it? The general public who need that support, they don't know. And most of the trainers they come across in gyms are of the low level quality that makes them probably never even want to go back into that gym again to speak to that person. So it's for something that's so important in society and to individuals' health, it's
We'll make it difficult.
yeah, because it's not well monitored.
Yeah.
And it's undervalued. It's undervalued on the NHS, things like that. So it's tough. It's tough for newcomers because, like I said, I don't believe there's the support in as good as it could be.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side of things, there's so many people who have made such a positive change through great support, great willpower, and ultimately determination.
Yeah.
Because that's what it comes down to,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah. To be able to grind out a session maybe first thing in the morning at 6 a.m. before you start work, or when you come here after a long day at work, and they get to the gym because they're so determined to reach their goals. They might have family and kids, and people like that mentally are equally, if not better, than many top level athletes I've seen.
Well, I think with professional athletes, for example, swimmers training at university, they do make it very easy for you to do that. And they are working to a very specific goal. But if you're just join the gym and you're trying to lose weight, you probably haven't got like a fitness tests that you do to check to see how fit you are or anything like that. And so I do think it's more difficult. It's more difficult at an amateur level in swimming, in my opinion, to train than it is when you're a professional. Like, the training doesn't change, you just get older, really. And that's why I found it difficult. It's just like fitting everything in and being tired all the time when I was training. And for swimming, it's probably the shittest sport you can do if you want to contribute to society in any other way. And like, I wouldn't be able to train what I did like 7 times a week, and if I went to uni I wouldn't be able to cope, because like there's not just distractions, but there's so many things that like you have to do, like work, and I don't mean work like literal work, I mean like coursework and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's made easy for elite athletes. Like, the training's not the same, but it's...
No, I'd agree with that. And again, it's another almost an area of why I wanted to be independent rather than employed by a club, because you probably get to see that, you get to work with that individual in a very close way, that you can guide them in a way that you couldn't sometimes in the very elite setups, because like certain sports have great funding, so they're probably working with a fantastic S&C. They might have access to a psychologist, their own nutritionist, and bearing in mind they might not even be yes, they're elite level and they're in an elite system, but then you see it in football all the time, like these players who have got everything and earning loads, but they've never made a first team appearance, for example. They still have to work hard, but they've got everything, all that support to blossom. Whereas some of the guys I work with and girls who they're trying to get to that, they might be in a sport that the funding isn't there and it's not as mainstream, so the funding may be never there, and your local businesses who sponsor athletes, for example, would go, well, I'm not sponsoring him because he's not in a sport that I like, or it's like swimming that isn't as mainstream. And so they're having to their parents are having to pay and travel and take them everywhere, and then they might have to get a part-time job to fund themselves when they get to that certain age. And before you know it, they're at a point where, in order for them to move forward, there's not enough hours in the day. There's not. They then go backwards, and they go backwards quickly, and then they get to that age where they go, well, I've not moved forward since I was 16. I'm 18 now.
Yeah.
I'm in the real world now, like we talked about. It happens overnight. I'm missing out on socialising with my friends. I'm missing out potentially going to university, if you will, or getting a good job because I've got no qualifications. And it's looking less and less likely, the situation I'm in, to now make it. So I've got to drop out of that sport. I've got to then, I'm almost 2 or 3 years behind my friends and my peers, and they're never to be seen in that sport again, even though they've got all the talent and the promise in
Yeah,
the world.
exactly.
They haven't got the opportunity and that's down to a bit of luck. Of course it is. You do make your own luck. There is that argument, but you can see why kind of. I know a good friend. Well, I say a good friend of mine. Used to be a good friend. Incredibly good at his sport, and I mean, like, when he was 15, 16, he would be probably top 10 in the world for that sport, and he'd just broken records after record of things that have stood for 20 years, and I mean on the international stage, and it was incredible. And it was literally, it seemed like it was overnight. He'd gone from this talent to virtually dropping out of the sport to being a pisshead. He was more bothered about going out on the drink. He was more bothered about pissing about with his mates, because he hadn't had any of that really as a childhood. He got to that level in his sport, but then he'd burnt out, and now he doesn't even play. He's not even in that sport, and it's very, very common. That is very, very common. So, and again, it links back almost to what we were saying with careers. People kind of make it at different stages depending on so many factors that coaches can't judge. People like to judge it, but you can't judge it and you can't control it. So, but now we got onto that out of personal training or whatever it was.
That was interesting. In terms of like interests, we spoke in the break about your interests, and your interests solely lie in sport, which is really good. And then also, if that's your job and you enjoy it so much, there's no problem with it. But if everything, for someone else, for example, if everything you do revolves around a job that you don't enjoy as much, that's where like problems like not like becoming lethargic, not training, not doing anything like that come from. And not only can training be something for your health, it can be something for just you as a person, like in general, make you more well-rounded. And swimming for me, when I was a swimmer and I was training 7 times a week, and you say to people that you do that, they're like, oh my God, that's amazing. And it makes you seem more of a person than just you go to work, get up, go to work, go home, do nothing. So if you're enjoying your job, it makes it, I don't know, so it's quite a weird concept to me, because my jobs so far that I've had have been to get money, not to enjoy them. I think that's a problem.
But I think
with me, and then also just like
I think that's a problem with so many people, and I can only sit there and say this now because of my experience. I've been through that. I remember it was only, I think, 4 years ago. I don't think it's even 4 years ago. I remember having to do work in a job that was so monotonous, so boring, not even good pay, but it was enough to get me through where I was at that point to be able to then fund myself. But like, I realised I learned so much even in 6 months when I was there, that, and bearing in mind, people work there for 20 years. This is their job, this is their life, this is their career. But I almost hated it with a passion that's driven me to not be in that position. Because that's almost an easy position. Now, because of that, like I say, those sacrifices. But if you think of that again, looking longer down the line, like for example, and not everyone will relate to this, and I speak to friends and they go, it's incredible what you're trying to do and what you are doing, but I could never do that, because they don't want the uncertainty of income. They'd rather just have that set wage, work 9 to 5, get their income, potentially earn really good money, potentially progress. Don't particularly love their job, don't particularly have passion, but they don't hate it. Some people genuinely hate it, but they earn enough money where they can justify doing it. But long term, that will always catch up with people.
It's like a teacher. A lot of teachers don't
enjoy
what
exactly
they
that.
Just do it.
Whereas for me, it's like, trying to build a reputation, trying to build a clientele base, trying to then progress both academically, with professional qualifications, with research.
Yeah.
I mean, to do all that and still probably earn very small amounts of money for like a year, I mean, it's very difficult to then have the finer things in life that you would probably get if you work 9 to 5, where you can go out regularly, you can socialise, days out, good meals, things like that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't have that, I'm not trying to plead poverty there, but it's more a case of that sacrifice is all done for the bigger picture, the longer term goal. And then on the flip side of things, and I've said this, I get to meet new people on a weekly basis. Really, really interesting people. Like, I've got a friend now who's become a good friend, and I've met him through business, but he has nothing to do with sport.
Yeah.
He has no background with sport, and yet he's someone who I trust, who helps guide me with business stuff, that helps. We chat about other stuff. I would only have met him through what I'm doing now, because, for example, we might meet up in the week, middle of the day, go for a coffee, have a meeting, have a chat. Could never have done that if I'm working 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So he's introduced me to other people, again, not in the industry, but in different industries that can bring skills and knowledge and, you know, contacts that you wouldn't normally and typically meet. And that's what it's about, isn't it? That connections, that building relationships that you can't do in a lot of trades and a lot of roles. So it's almost like it's a bit of give and take, but what would be, you know, I've been there, so I know I don't want that one side of things, but I know I don't mind sacrificing something in the short term to get all this other side of things. And other people have different mentalities, so I think, you know, looking what you're on about, it's a sacrifice, isn't it? You've got to always sacrifice something, but if you're willing to sacrifice it for the right reasons, then you'll do it.
Yeah.
But most people, and I mean most people, aren't willing to sacrifice some of the materialistic things I think we have.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, does that make sense?
That does make sense.
You might. I guess, where are you coming from that aspect? Are you in that stage probably in life where you're not sure which avenue you're going to go down, and it's...
Well, yeah, I've got like 3 major opportunities in which I can explore. So there's like, I'm doing coaching at the minute, then I'm working a full-time job, and then there's this. And it's whether I want to stick to working a full-time job and make alright money and be alright when something that is good and I enjoy the people I work with, but it's not exactly a very rewarding job. Do coaching and work in it for however long and become a good coach, but not necessarily satisfy my creativity, or carry on doing the podcast and dedicate a lot more time to that, and then also other things to do with the channel, and progress that further, and satisfy my creativity but not get paid for a while, which is where I might start doing less of like my full-time job, and then explore this more and try and progress Lucid forward. I've got opportunities coming up in that, but how can you decide? It's so difficult, and you never really know where you're going to go.
It's easy for me to say, well, it's not easy for me to say this, but I think it comes from the right places. Some people who have come from a very similar academic background, or basically got the skills and qualifications and knowledge, if not more, than myself, but are 10, 15 years older, have said to me, you know, I wish I'd done what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I say to him, it's not too late. You're still young if you think about the length of your career, but other factors like family, kids, mortgages, they're not barriers, but people let them be barriers. So they go, no, I'm too late. I've got my career, my pathway set out. So I guess what I'm saying is almost like, you're young, and there is no better time to do it. There is no better time. You've got no responsibilities to not chase something like that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do it now, when realistically, it's never going to get easier.
Yeah.
There's never going to be a better chance
Yeah.
to do it. I'm really lucky because my partner is really supportive.
Yeah.
So she supports me on where I want to get, and probably in a sense, if she didn't or I wasn't with her, I probably wouldn't actually be where I am now.
Yeah.
You'd like to think you would, but maybe the pathway would have changed completely. So it's, I've got a couple of friends who you do struggle sometimes to get your head around it, but again, it comes down to their support mechanism around them, so their family, their friends, their upbringing, and they work like 80, 90-hour weeks.
Yeah.
Every week. They earn a lot of money because of the amount of hours they work. They drive nice expensive cars, they have nice expensive clothes, they can then maybe buy a big house at a relatively young age. They can have all that materialistic stuff, and if that's what you want, and if that's what makes you happy, then you are doing exactly what you should be doing. But you then speak to them and say, do you fancy doing this? Do you fancy doing that? Working. They've got all this money, but they don't get a chance to enjoy it. And then they say, well, I'm saving it so that I can enjoy it. But at what point then do you start enjoying it? What, 20 years time?
Yeah.
10 years time? Even 5 years? And they're still only like in the mid-20s.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's going to change in 5 years' time? You're more likely to have kids and a family. So you're less likely to go and enjoy your money and stop working.
Yeah.
Or work less hours, for example. And that's not me saying, well, there's right and wrong ways. It's more just like, well, what are you here? What are you here trying to do? We're privileged. We live in a country and have pathways that is essentially brilliant, really, isn't it? It's not. There's always something wrong, but we're one of the best countries in the world where we're lucky enough where we can go to university. I can look at a lifetime in something I love, but I could then say in 10 years' time, you know what, this isn't for me, and go down another avenue. I've got all that opportunity, whereas how many people don't have any of that opportunity?
Yeah.
So you're in a position of quite great privilege. So actually, just bloody do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Unless you're more bothered about making some, because it's only going to be short-term money and spending it on what?
Yeah.
I don't know what you really spend it on that's going to make any difference to your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think the biggest change I've made, consciously or subconsciously, and this is me, this is down to me, nobody else. It's not personal. It's probably more personal to me, as in like I'm the one. But especially since starting up business, I surround myself more and more with people who are more like-minded to me and have the same sort of views on kind of where they want to get, and that keeps me more continuously motivated, less self-doubt, because you have just a general conversation, you're not actually talking about anything that's relatable to that, and yet it's directly relatable because they're on the same, rather than you got other people saying, well, why are you doing this, why are you doing that, oh, blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean? Because they're in a totally different lifestyle and world to you, but that's a negative environment. They're not trying to be negative. So I might come across as negative to them because it's a completely different way of thinking. Yeah. So if you surround yourself with the right people, it'll push you forward. But the only way you surround yourself with the right people is one, putting yourself in that environment. Yeah. And if you're not putting yourself in it, it's not going to come to you, is it? Yeah. It's that kind of principle of you're a product of your environment. So that's that's where your psychology comes in, doesn't it?
I think that's where we'll end. I'm 45. Not too bad.
Shit.
All right. I'll just say last few things. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Hopefully we can do it in the future.
Hopefully people will listen to this that is relatable. Yeah. And we can get some, maybe, we've talked about a hell of a lot there. And maybe certain areas have been, we've gone almost quite in depth, but not in depth at all. Yeah. So not really providing any answers to it, and probably providing more questions. And that might be something that some form of feedback or constructive feedback to say, let's talk about this in a future date or something, because that's essentially what it should be about. Yeah. Is spark a bit of a debate. Yeah.
Yeah, so I will link Sam's Instagram for his strength and conditioning page below. Obviously there you can contact him if you've got any inquiries about gym work, and obviously for a high level athlete it'd be good for you to get in contact with a professional strength and conditioning coach to progress you further forward. And then me and Ollie are, next weekend I'm going over to his, and we are designing a couple items of clothing in the Lucid brand, which will be cool. So by the end of this month we should have some stuff in the works and being progressed. I'm still attempting to implement the podcast onto iTunes, so just bear with. It'll be coming soon. It'll be a lot easier for everyone. And that's all, really.
Okay.
Right, thanks. And
Thank you very much.
see you guys next week.